Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I'm stepping in today to give you a special lecture for your public speaking class, and we are diving headfirst into the exciting and honestly pretty challenging world of persuasive speaking. Because look, whether you're just trying to ace this class, trying to pitch a wild new idea to your boss, or advocating for a local cause in your community, mastering persuasion, it's literally a superpower.
But hey, before we get bogged down in all the theory, I actually want to kick things off with a live exercise. It's going to show you right away just how tricky, controlled, persuasive speaking really is.
Okay, so here's your 30-second speaking challenge, and I really encourage you to try this at home. Your task is to speak continuously for 30 seconds about literally any topic. But here is the catch. Absolutely no vocalized pauses. No no ah, no and definitely no like. If you slip up and use one of those little vocal crutches, you got to start the clock all over again. Sounds super simple, right? Well, trying it is going to force you to realize exactly how incredibly deliberate and intentional your public speaking actually needs to be.
All right, let's look at the agenda for today's lesson plan. We'll be tackling 4 main sections. First up, welcome to persuasion. Second, the ethics of influence. Third, understanding your audience. And finally, fact, value, or policy.
Okay, let's jump right into section 1. Welcome to persuasion, the role of the advocate.
Getting a handle on this is an absolutely fundamental skill. It's going to help you out in everything from your personal relationships to your career aspirations, right up to your civic life. Basically, persuasion is the act of creating, reinforcing, or changing people's beliefs or actions. When you stand up to give a persuasive speech, your whole job fundamentally shifts. You aren't just a teacher dropping information anymore. You have to act as an advocate for your position. You are actively trying to change the attitudes, beliefs, or actions of the people listening to you.
Moving right along to section 2, the ethics of influence, navigating the moral compass.
The source text brings up a really fantastic rhetorical question that I want you to chew on for a second. Why is meeting ethical obligations so challenging when you're speaking to persuade? Well, to figure that out, we need to quickly look at the academic definition of ethics. Ethics are the moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. It's all about the moral correctness of your conduct. We really have to ground ourselves here because trying to change someone else's mind, that carries some serious weight. It's not a game, it's a profound responsibility.
So, the big question is, how do we operate ethically? Well, there are some core guidelines you absolutely must follow. First off, make sure your goals are ethically sound. Then, you need to learn all sides of an argument so you don't accidentally mislead anyone. But most importantly, be entirely honest. I really want to caution you against subtle dishonesty. You know, things like quoting someone out of context, cherry-picking just a few details from a larger story, or misrepresenting your sources. You always need to present your evidence fairly and accurately.
All right, section 3, understanding your audience, the psychological process.
Make no mistake here, guys. Persuasion is the most complex and challenging form of public speaking. And why is that? Because you're dealing with controversial topics that involve basic, deeply ingrained attitudes, values, and beliefs. It's not an all-or-nothing game where you just snap your fingers and flip a switch in someone's brain. Not at all. Actually, persuasion involves any movement by a listener from left to right on a spectrum, ranging from strongly opposed all the way over to strongly in favor. If someone is strongly opposed to your idea, a completely realistic and successful goal might just be moving them to moderately opposed. Now, to get them to move even an inch, you have to understand what the source calls the mental dialogue. You've got to remember that your audience isn't just sitting there passively soaking up your words like a sponge. They're engaging in a mental give and take. While you're talking, they are constantly assessing your credibility, your delivery, and your evidence. A lot of times, they're actually arguing with you right there in their own heads. So you have to put yourself in their shoes, anticipate those silent objections, and structure your speech to answer them directly.
And that brings us to section 4, fact, value, or policy, structuring your argument.
Depending on what you're trying to achieve, there are 3 distinct types of persuasive speeches you can give. First up, we have questions of fact. A question of fact deals directly with the truth or falsity of an assertion. Basically, this type of speech focuses on proving whether something is verifiably true or false. Think about historical claims, like whether someone knew about the attack on Pearl Harbor in advance, or scientific claims, like whether smoking cigarettes is harmful to human health.
Let's actually look at how you'd structure one of these. Here's a great fact speech example straight from our text. The specific purpose here is to persuade the audience that a 9.0 earthquake will hit California in the next 10 years. Notice how logically the main points stack up to prove the claim. Point 1, California is overdue. Point 2, geological signs indicate it may happen soon. And point 3, experts agree it could strike any day. See, you are presenting a strict, factual case.
Now let's move to our second type, questions of value. These speeches tackle the worth, rightness, or morality of an idea or action. Here, you're arguing whether something is inherently good or bad, right or wrong.
To show you what I mean, we can look at this strictly academic example from the text regarding capital punishment. The specific purpose here is to persuade the audience that capital punishment is morally and legally wrong. The entire argument is built around values. Point 1 argues that it violates a biblical commandment, and point 2 argues it violates the constitutional ban on cruel and unusual punishment. Notice how you aren't arguing if capital punishment happens, but rather the ethical weight of the fact that it does.
And finally, we have questions of policy. This deals with whether a specific course of action should or should not be taken. These speeches usually build on the facts and values you've already established to demand a real, actionable solution. Like, you might argue that the U.S. Congress should pass legislation curbing phony pharmaceuticals, or maybe that your city would save millions by building a rapid bus system instead of a new highway.
All right, class, let's inject a little interactive energy into this explainer with a quick pop quiz. We're going to do a rapid-fire mental quiz based on some of the trickier examples from the source text. I'm going to read a statement, and I want you to mentally categorize it for me. Is it fact, value, or policy?
Okay, here is your first prompt. To persuade my audience that a national sales tax should be adopted to help reduce the national debt. Take a quick second. What do you think?
And the answer is question of policy. The dead giveaway here is the word should and the explicit call for adoption. Whenever you're demanding a specific action or the adoption of a rule, that is your giant neon sign pointing straight to a policy speech.
Okay, let's try another one. To persuade my audience to join Teach for America. Now, fair warning, the source explicitly marks this one as tricky. It sounds an awful lot like an action, but I want you to look a little closer at its deeper structural foundation.
The answer to this one is actually a question of value. I know it's tricky, but why? Because convincing someone to dedicate a massive portion of their life to join a cause, well, that ultimately rests on persuading them of the cause's inherent worth, morality, and ethical value.
Let's do one final comparison, just to show how a single topic can totally shift depending on how you frame it. Consider these two statements right side by side. Number 1, a federal law should be passed requiring the driver's seatbelt to be fastened. And number 2, if fastened, we could save lives. Which one is policy and which one is fact?
So the first statement clearly demands legislative action, which makes it a policy statement. The second statement simply asserts a measurable outcome, making it a fact statement. This brilliantly illustrates just how much flexibility you have as a speaker. You can tackle the exact same topic from completely different angles depending on your ultimate goals. So as we wrap up this public speaking lecture, I want to leave you with this final thought. Now that you hold these distinct, powerful tools of fact, value, and policy, how will you ethically use your voice as an advocate to shape the minds around you?